Greetings. This is Rabbi Aaron Box from Temple Beth Shalom in Ocala, Florida. Once again, back with my podcast for this week. I've written a couple of things this week on Facebook or online, and I want to sort of talk about what those things were. So I had to rewind back a little bit to middle of 2020, probably let's say August, September-ish of 2020, right in the middle or the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic. We really didn't know very much in September or August, but we were certainly better off than we were knowledge-wise in March or April. But it was still in that time period where we were talking about social distancing and, 6 feet apart, and everyone was wearing masks everywhere we went. And this was a tremendous social fight. Some people said that wearing masks was not necessary, and some people said it was necessary, and there's all kinds of issues. But beyond all of that, one of the decisions that was made, at least it needed to be made, was what do we do if we are in a building or we are manager or a supervisor or a rabbi or a doctor or whatever. And it was most people decided to close their buildings, at least to the public, and everything sort of moved to Zoom. So there were Zoom services, Zoom adult education classes, Zoom religious school, and this wasn't just a Jewish problem. Obviously, this was something that was going on in all communities. But one thing that I observed in my community in Knoxville was that everything, literally everything, fell on the shoulders of basically three people: myself, the president of the congregation, and the secretary of the congregation. As a matter of fact, with the exception of myself and the secretary, nobody was allowed to be in the building without permission because of there was a lot of fear and there was a lot of angst and people wanting to not get sick. And as the world was learning more and more about the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was just a rough time. But for me personally, I had a bit of a wave of exhaustion hit me that had not hit me at any point in my rabbinic career to that point. And I was completely overwhelmed. I was tired. I was, just working my tail off every single day, trying to make everything happen. And it was a lot. And the High Holy Days were exceptionally challenging that particular year. And as a result of that exhaustion that I felt, one part of my rabbinate really suffered, and that was my writing. I really hit a bit of a writer's block. I did put out some things here and there, but I was not really able to focus on writing, which is one of the things that I really, really enjoy doing. And eventually, I came out of that writer's block. The exhaustion was, lessened, and so to speak, and I began to write again. And now, we're now 6 years later. I am, about to publish my first book. I say my first book because I do hope to continue writing more than one. And it's going to be a collection of my poetry and my prayers that I've written over the past 15 or 20 years or so. But I find myself once again in a bit of a writer's block. And the exhaustion is hitting again. With what's going on in Israel right now, with the war in Iran, with what happened on October 7th, and all of the aftermath of October 7th, there's a certain rise of anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish hate that is really, it seems to be permeating everything we do, everything we see. A high-ranking person in the United States government resigns from his job and blames the reason that he left his job is he blames Israel for. Of course, I'm speaking about the war in Iran. There's just a feeling of angst, anxiety, fear, anger, sadness that is constantly in our face. And as a leader of a community, this puts a lot of, stress, a lot of I don't wanna use the word burden because it's not a burden. If it is a burden, it's a burden that I choose, right? Because I I choose to be a rabbi, although I would say that I don't know what I would be if I wasn't a rabbi. So it's a calling, so to speak, but also it's a burden that I choose to handle, to deal with, to face every single day. And I know, you know, one major difference to the exhaustion I feel today versus the exhaustion I felt in 2020, I feel a real support from my congregation, a real dedication from my congregation. I am very well aware that I'm in a very good place professionally, and that of course affects me socially and affects my family, and I have nothing to complain about, and everything to be excited and to cheer for and be happy about and celebrate. But the exhaustion is still there, and it's okay. It's okay to feel exhausted. It's okay to feel sadness. It's okay to feel angst and to be to have a level of anxiety. It's at those moments though that it's important for us to look at the things in our life that we enjoy. Look at the people that we enjoy being around and dwell on those things. And that will help to bring us out of whatever funk we may find ourselves in. And I do believe that there is excuse me, there's going to be an end to this, the anxious. I'll never not feel anxiety. I mean, we're humans. We live in a world that has a lot of hate and anger and frustration, but there will be a point at which we've turned the corner. I've turned the corner in our ability to get and deal with the world around us. I know that I have colleagues out there that are in much less happy situations professionally, sometimes less happy situations socially. So I am very thankful for where I am and for who I surround myself with and the community that I find myself in. Obviously, I have a wonderful, loving family, and I really can't have nothing to complain about there. And if I did have something to complain about, I'm not sure that I would because it doesn't help anything to complain about that, especially when there's nothing really to complain about. But what I want to really focus here on is find yourself in a moment of frustration or anxiety, or if you're terrified, or if you're scared, or if you're angry, keep those feelings. Don't lose them. It's important to have them, but also look for good in your life. Look for something that you enjoy doing or people that you enjoy being around, and do that activity. Spend more time with those people that you care about, because at the end of the day, we must be able to look to our communities to be able to surround ourselves with love and compassion and kindness. That's really the crux of it. So keep on keeping on, as they say. And eventually the funk, the anxiety, the anxiousness, the writer's block, if that's what you want to call it, for me, will go away, or at least dissipate a little bit, enough to move forward. And that's what we need to do, is to strive to move forward. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.